Hey, everybody. Welcome to This Week in Pre-IPO Stocks podcast. With me today, I have the world famous Nick Fusco, CEO of PM Insights. It's a pre-IPO secondary market pricing company. It's just Nick and I today. Clint and Evan are both traveling for business today. So we'll probably totally geek out, I would think, on the markets. But three topics for you guys. First one, Nick, Klarna IPO. So there was some buzz that these guys are going to go in April. They're looking at a $15 billion valuation. Out of PM Insights, I got them at around 12.8 billion.
That's right.
Which is up 91% from their July 2022 round. And here's just some quick stats that their CEO tweeted over the weekend. So 2.8 billion in revenue in 2024. So that's a 5.4x revenue multiple, which is kind of low, I think. And then 85 million users, $100 billion of transaction volume. They have 500,000 merchants on their platform. 30% of their volume is debit cards, not credit. So not buy now, pay later, but just debit card transactions. And they got over 1 million cards issued globally. So what are your thoughts about maybe Klarna and just fintech, right? And this IPO? What are you thinking?
Sure. I've loved Klarna for a long time. The average down that some of the funds took when they took that down round, I thought was great. It was a nice reset. So that's why we're seeing almost a double since that round. And
that's right.
The company, the growth, the leadership are all sound. You know, I think we called this a year ago, and we were saying this is a great buy. We went around the room when it wasn't just you and I in the call, right? But the revenue multiple, way cheap compared to a MasterCard or compared to a Visa. Yes, it's a different business, right? And they have a lot of debit card customers, which is a little bit more European, Swedish company. But that IPO sounds really attractive at your 15 billion. You know, it's not far off where the secondary is trading. And when I say trading, you're seeing a lot of trade activity on this name, not like what we had in Reddit or some of the other more recent IPOs that had a lot of interest, but the bids and the offers were so far apart. You know, it was very hard to pull off as many trades as what we're seeing here on Klarna. So I think a lot of this is priced right. I don't think this is going to be a bag holder situation for the public when it IPOs either. So
no,
I've got a lot of good things to say.
It might even pop. Yeah, it might even pop. I mean, these guys were at, I don't have it in front of me, but I think they were at 40 billion or 45 billion, right? Kind of in the 2021 range.
Right.
And then I just felt bad for them because they did this major global expansion. Klarna did, right? And you could tell they were kind of like going for it. They were stepping on the gas, and they ran out of capital, and they had to go to market like right at the worst time in 2022.
Was,
you know,
that's how you can like pin the worst time. Effectively, it's like the
bottom ticket.
Yeah, they really did, and
I felt bad for them
for sure. And even things like their founder Sebastian, and I'll hate to butcher the last name, Siemiantowski. He was on like the Forbes billionaire list, and then he had to fall off, you know, because the valuation hit was that hard. But that reset was really, I think, good for the company. They're not going to get worse, you know, from that moment.
No, I think it's a great company. I love the CEO. I think that guy's a stud. They're doing a ton of stuff in AI now within the company.
That's right.
Okay. They're doing AI in their product, but they're doing a lot of stuff in AI. I mean, they have like stories where they had like 4,500 employees, and then now they have 3,000 employees. So they reduced headcount like dramatically, and the company was like still growing like high double digits.
It was,
I mean, like really impressive.
And it was a weird, organic is the wrong word because they're getting rid of employees, but it's not like they did mass layoffs.
Right.
They said, can you help us automate your own job? And the team was like, yeah, we can figure this out. That's a cool problem to have. And they kind of did it, you know, and they partnered with
automated themselves out of jobs.
OpenAI.
Yeah, smart.
So really, really clever. So
I mean, there's going to be like there's going to be a Harvard business case on that, man. Like how they did that.
You'd hope
it's very different.
You would definitely hope so. And that's what makes that revenue multiple so attractive. You know, they are so efficient. You almost want to compare it to how Palantir's headcount compares to a Lockheed Martin. They have those
Right.
stats out
Yes.
on how much money they make per employee. I think Klarna is going to just
Correct.
put MasterCard and Visa to shame,
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I like really like this company. I feel bad for them that they had to take it on the chin like they did, right, in 2022. And I'm also too, like, for what it's worth, like, just buy now, pay later. As an old fintech guy, right? I actually like buy now, pay later. I think it's better than paying 20 whatever 9% on a credit card on a revolving balance, right? So if you have to buy something and you can't pay for it in cash, right, and you got to revolve it, why not do an installment based loan like this? I think it's better. But
it could definitely catch up with
okay,
you, but it's less predatory.
I agree.
Yeah,
That's well said. That's a nice way of
there's
saying
a
it.
finite end. So I was
Correct.
buying my son a pair of New Balance, right? So let's just say they were $40 and you pay 10, 10, 10,
Uh,
10. Easy,
that's right.
right?
That's right.
And then at the
Simple.
end, I paid the
Simple.
$40 and we're cool. We're going to be
Yeah.
square. As opposed to if I miss a payment or realize that I should overextend my limit by far too much, we could
Yes.
fall in a death spiral with 29% credit cards. So,
For sure. For
I mean,
sure.
not that
So
there
okay.
aren't
All right. So it
penalties with
sounds like
Klarna. However,
right.
it's not going to be
Yeah.
as aggressive.
Severe. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, so it sounds like not investment advice, but it sounds like we're bullish on the company. So hopefully, good luck to those guys in the IPO, and we'll certainly keep our eye on it. Right. All right. Let's talk Anduril real quick. So Anduril's a defense technology company. They got hardware. They got AI that powers that hardware. This is Palmer Luckey's business, who did Oculus. Right. Oculus sold to Meta for $2 billion. So this is this fellow's second go around. So they're doing around a $28 billion valuation. They're raising $2.5 billion. The secondary has them at 22.6. So this is a nice increase from that. Their last round was at 14 billion in August of 2024. So not that long ago, right? And we're already looking at a pretty healthy increase. So 2024 revenue was $1 billion. That's 2x over where they were in 2023. They have that. I don't really know what this means, but it says the 2024 annual contract value reached 1.5 billion. So I'm assuming that means that they signed contracts where they got like future revenue coming in too, and that's like maybe a kind of like an annualized run rate.
Committed.
Perhaps maybe that's one way to think about
Right.
it. Yeah. So and then that, so all these numbers, that's a 28x revenue multiple, which I think that's a pretty solid. That's a healthy revenue multiple, right? So what are your thoughts on Anduril as a company in this round here and kind of their prospects?
So here's the opposite comparison of what we just had. So anyone that's listening to this thing through the start, I appreciate that. Klarna is what we just spoke about. That had a 4x revenue multiple versus MasterCard and Visa at 20. We're flipping that on its head here with Anduril. So we've got it clocked not at the round, but at around 20x. So just off of where Aaron's saying, you compare that to Lockheed Martin, which is like sub 2, but I still think you're kind of doing well with this. There's so much buy pressure, there's so much interest, and the growth on the name is exceptional. So you're paying for the growth, you're definitely paying through the nose, but I think there's a very long vision on here. Defense tech is here to stay. This is not a one administration type of deal. Didn't matter who we had in leadership, Anduril was going to outperform, right? So yeah, this is a unique one where paying for the growth, I still think it's pretty fairly valued, and maybe they've really been thoughtful about not taking too much capital intensive business, but not taking too much, so they can continue to do these incremental higher rounds, or they might do the SpaceX play where they start to do more tenders in the future too.
Right. Yeah.
Really.
Listen, also too, I don't like to, so Nick, I don't like to like invest along political lines, right?
Same.
So I'm going to say this, not that I'm like pro one way or the other, but what I am seeing now is this, like, there's like a level of fiscal responsibility that's kind of reverberating through the government. And I have to imagine, like, Anduril doesn't do this cost plus. Like, a lot of the incumbent defense primes do this cost plus. Like, the Pentagon would hire them to do a mandate or deliver on a mandate. And whatever the cost is, they just like add 15% to it, and then they like deliver it. But they always seem to be late. It always seems to the costs run way over. It's just kind of an odd way to do that. Anduril is like any other business. They're like, here's the product, here's our widget that we made. It costs this much money. Do you want to buy it? Yes or no? Right? You know what I mean? It's like a normal kind of business thing. I mean, I think that probably plays well into this new environment, fiscal environment that we're going into, right? For Anduril to win more market share. I mean, would you agree with that, or what do you think about that?
I will agree, irrespective of the sector. But yeah, if you pay someone by the hour, you know what? To paint your house, it's probably going to take a little longer than if you give them a flat
Right.
rate, figure out what the cost is.
Fair point.
It's
Fair
the
point.
same with any industry, right? So I think here especially, it was such a massive barrier to entry that any large defense contractor could do that, and it was so
Right.
difficult for the next person to come in. But here we have Palmer Luckey. Like, we got this. We're big enough now. We're growing fast enough. We can get in, and then the influence of Elon Musk, I would just say, opens the door quite a bit. It's not just like they have their foot in the door now. It's wide open, and they can make much more competitive bids. I think they're going to be downright disruptive to the institutions that are in with the Pentagon already. And thankfully
Right.
for them, they
Yeah.
have like these 10-year or longer sometimes agreements. But Jesus, I think Anduril is worth that revenue multiple that they're commanding right now.
Yeah, I mean the question here, I think, with this business is how big could the valuation get, right? So I think a Lockheed Martin's like a 120 billion dollar company, right? I mean, it'd be interesting to see if this thing could go to like a 200 to 300 billion dollar valuation, right? I mean, you're talking about governments is really your only customer unless they open up like a commercial division at some point in the future, right? Where they're security or surveillance for utility companies or police units or something to that effect, right? Like that could be that's new revenue streams. But just like the Lockheed Martins, the Boeings, the Raytheons, those are all in like the 60 billion to 120 billion dollar range. So yeah, I mean that's the one thing. If I put my investor hat on, how far could this thing run after a $28 billion round, right? But any thoughts on valuation, like long-term valuation for this company?
Sure. I mean, if you're talking about a 200 billion, I don't think that's far-fetched. That's not even a 10x. Off of where they've been in the secondary, which is 22,
right,
and the valuation
right,
around 28. And with the fact that this company's under 10 years old, they can pivot in any which way much more easy than like Raytheon deciding they want to make
agreed
the next Ring camera for the house. It's not going to happen.
right,
But if
right.
Anduril came out with that, they could probably do it in 2 years and have something that's helpful for the end consumer. I'm
That's
not
right.
suggesting that's the right way or where they're going to go, but there's no reason why they couldn't become not just a B2G, but a B2B or a B2C.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could see that. I wouldn't mind having like some autonomous drones, following me around, making sure I'm safe.
Even just,
Why
you go
not?
to the B2C, or sorry, let's go B2B, and you use it for prisons,
Right.
penitentiaries.
Yes.
Like
It's true.
that's the one of the most inefficient industries in America.
Right.
You
Right.
bring this in, and that I could definitely go through a number of use cases, even though I've never been to prison. But I could probably think of a few good ones where you could utilize
Absolutely.
AI, advanced technology that's certainly not being utilized with the expenses there.
Yes. Yeah. So I like this company. I'm a big believer in what they do. And I just and they're running circles, in my opinion. They're running circles around the incumbents, right? So, and I don't see that changing. So I'm very bullish on the revenue prospects for these guys, and I think you got a little bit of a kicker with what's going on with fiscal responsibility right now in the federal government too. So I think that bodes to help these guys in the near term. But all right, let's talk last company. We'll do this sec here. Give 5 minutes to Groq. So Groq is a semiconductor company. They have chips, AI chips that are specifically focused on inference. So that's running AI models as opposed to training an AI model. So NVIDIA has GPUs that can train and also run AI models. Groq's chips are specific for training AI models, right? So they are just like crushing it right now, in my opinion. They just announced a $1.5 billion deal, which I think that's an incremental deal to what they've already been doing with Saudi Aramco Digital. It's like Aramco Digital, I think is the name of the division. So they've already built a data center with those guys. They have 19,000 LPUs, which is language processing units. That's Groq's chip, right? So that's the largest data center in the Middle East. They just announced $1.5 billion new deal with Aramco Digital. They have, and here's some other stats they threw out. So they have 652,000 AI developers using Groq Cloud. So that's their LPU in their own cloud presence. Yeah, like really impressive. They have 108,000 LPUs that they've shipped by the end of Q1 2025 that they got queued up. They're targeting 2 million by the end of this year. And they got a goal, like Jonathan Ross, the CEO, said he wants to be 50% of global inference market. That's bold, man. I love that stuff. And so, yeah, so $3.1 billion second round.
Yeah, they were early in the space too. I forget if they were 2016 or 2018. I was
you're right.
On the website and just looking at some of their stats. It's very much not trying to be, or at least how it's being marketed. They're not trying to be the Swiss Army knife that just does absolutely everything. But that what they want to be is this specific thing, you know. So they're the backstroke of champion of the Olympics, but they're doing it really freaking well. And
that's right.
Yeah, it's downright impressive. And I think more and more you're going to have the specialization of whether it's inference or GPUs or LPUs or anything that we're gearing towards, giving choice to the end consumer, whether it's Saudi Aramco, my company, or yours.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to want to be able to hammer in and take the speed advantage or utilize yet less power or less cost. If we can utilize Groq here and then utilize NVIDIA here and then go elsewhere, you know. So I think they've got their place in the market. But the moment you think you have it, the moment you think you have the line of sight to 50% market share, it's gone. There's just somebody new coming up, you know, and they're competing with Databricks and Mistral in certain extents, claiming to be much faster. But it's super tricky to pick a winner, you know, in this space.
What I find interesting about Groq's business is they have the cloud, right? So they make chips. I mean, I think first and foremost, you probably ask them, like, what do we do? Like, we make these LPU chips, right?
Hardware.
That's like their core component.
Right.
And it's like, well, how do you distribute those chips out to people to use them? And they have the cloud solution, which people can come in and basically get started, like literally for free. They have like a free tier. And I think that's why they have so many AI developers using it, because you can get in there and kind of code into the APIs and start using their stuff for free. But then they also have, you know, the chips and the servers, like they're doing with you know, Aramco Digital. So like
on-prem, right?
You know, on-prem, yeah. So like it's a function of distribution on how people consume their chips. But I just like these guys. The Jonathan Ross was the guy that did the TPUs, the tensor processing units, the CEO at Groq at Google. He was the guy that like developed and started and built out Google Cloud's like AI chip. This guy's like super smart. And the whole team that he's built around him is super smart. I'm just like, I mean, 50%, I hope that's right. I hope they get to 50% inference market share. That would be amazing, right? But, you know, it's a big deal. Maybe let me ask you this. Like, what are you hearing? What are you, like, final question, right? What are you hearing about inference as a percentage of total compute in the long run, right? Are you hearing, or do you have any thoughts about that? Like like, is it like right now, I think a lot of people talk about training, and that's like most of the AI chips are being used for training, right? And then of course, more and more people are using AI. So inference is starting to ramp up a little bit, but even some of the way that the models are being developed now, they use more inference than they do, obviously training compute. So like, I mean, any thoughts on Like if you had to place chips, would you be, or chips? That's not a good word to use. But if you had to place bets on like where the stuff is going, would it
No,
be in
I like
inference?
that,
Would it be in
placing
training?
bets
Does it matter? Like, what do you think?
with your chips. No, well, I think
Yeah,
inference is clearly of extreme importance, and I think we're going to have almost like a balanced portfolio of how we're going to do our compute. And we've talked about this in the
right.
past on the podcast, but cost is going to come down, size is going to come down. I think you're going to have a lot more on-prem type work, and if you can have the lower powered units or the smaller units as well, like on-prem, maybe for this particular use case with the LPUs, and then
Yeah,
you go to the cloud for a lot of other aspects of things, and you start to have to create this bit of a portfolio across your different cloud providers, across the different training providers and compute providers. So I do see a world where I think there's a many winners here. So I don't.
yeah.
I'd love to root for them to get to 50%, but I would actually try to root that they don't, and you
Mm.
have a much more diversified set of players in the space instead of having a repeat of the Mag 7 in privates. So
I got to tell you,
yeah,
you're the second person that I've heard say that in like the last 2 weeks' time. So I've been looking at this company, Lambda Labs,
yep,
right? Where
we
they
priced that.
take GPUs. Yeah. Okay. So like they take GPUs, they have a cloud solution, right? But they also have, they'll literally like deliver hardware. So not like server stacks per se. Well, they do server stacks and GPUs, but they also do like desktop laptops and desktop computers. And it's kind of what you were saying. Like I listen to the CEO. It's like, he's like, look, in the long run, like you're going to have AI, you'll be using so much AI within your house. You're not going to want it to like go out to the cloud and use that compute. You're going to want to like buy something and it's going to be in your home and you'll have like GPUs like in your house. Like you have a water heater and whatever else you have, like an electrical panel up on the
Cryptocurrency
wall.
miner
And
sitting there
yeah, right. You know what I'm
kicking
saying?
off
But
energy
it
for
was like,
the greenhouse, right?
yeah, man. It was like, but I was like, this is actually very interesting because I hadn't thought about like it's actually less expensive to just buy this and have it at my house, right? And I could run all my AI stuff like locally through this device versus like going to the cloud and having to potentially like pay it like a utility bill every month for that, right?
Yeah, it's coming full circle. So
Mm,
I remember when I was in high school and we would have web hosting and all this. I mean, building all these different sites. We would start to host things locally. We would have all the compute in the big old tower and things like that. And even with the
yeah,
last company I worked for, so shout out to Semantic Evolution, now Thematics, we had a lot on site. It was just sitting in the corner, kicking
mm,
off a big amount of heat, you know. But
yeah, yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah,
started to
yeah.
make sense. And then especially with some of the new stuff coming out of NVIDIA getting way smaller as well, you know, I think
Mm,
there's going
mm,
to be
mm.
a compete on efficiency and size. And
Yeah,
yeah, if you could
that's
have it at
interesting.
home and we can get better electricity, you know, costs, if we have nuclear and things of
Mm,
that nature, where it's going to be disruptive then to the server farms to be way more efficient. So
right. Yeah. I mean that's it's just like I was
who
fascinated because I'd never
who can
heard
get
the
the energy
CEO of
the
Lambda
cheapest?
Labs say that, and then boom, Nick Fusco hits me with it too, all within 2 weeks' time. It's like, come on, awesome, awesome. All right, brother, let's end it there,
Good
man. This
stuff.
is awesome. 30. That was like 20 minutes. We killed it this week. All right,
Speedy,
bro.
dude.
All right, man.
All right, appreciate it.
Yeah, man. It's good talking to you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks a
Bye.
lot. All right.